Welcome to The Last Generation, the podcast where lived experience meets lasting change. I'm your host, Donna Simmons, author of Ashes to Flame, Transforming Trauma into Purpose, also a survivor, advocate, and truth teller. Welcome to The Last Generation, where we talk about transforming trauma into purpose, one brave story, one honest truth at a time. I'm your host, Donna Simmons. Today's episode might land somewhere deep in your chest because it's not just about the theory of healing. It's about how that healing, or the lack of it, shows up in our most intimate, unrehearsed moments in parenting. It's one thing to read about trauma. It's another to feel your heart race when your toddler screams, to flinch when your teenager slams the door, to react and then wonder, where did that come from? Today, we're going to talk about that where. We'll explore why our kids can feel like emotional landmines, why certain stages of their development shake something loose in us, and what neuroscience, attachment theory, and lived experience can teach us about being the cycle breakers we've always wanted to be. Let's breathe deep. Let's be brave, and let's begin. Let's start with this truth. Just because you survived your childhood doesn't mean you were unscathed. Generational trauma isn't just inherited through stories or scars. It's embedded in our nervous systems and the unspoken rules of our families and the tone of our reactions. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk said it best in The Body Keeps the Score. Trauma is not just an event that took place sometime in the past. It is also the imprint left by that experience on mind, brain, and body. So when your toddler melts down at the grocery store and your body tenses before your brain even catches up, that's not weakness, that's history. If you were punished for crying as a child, your child's tears might make you feel like you're drowning. If your love was conditional on grades, obedience, performance, your teenager's boundary setting might feel like a betrayal. But it's not them. It's the wounded child in you, still waiting for comfort, still looking for safety. I want to take you back to a moment that changed my parenting forever. My daughter was 4. She spilled juice on the carpet. And before I realized it, my voice was sharp, my body was tense. She froze, and in her eyes, I saw something I knew way too well: fear. And suddenly, I wasn't looking at my daughter. I was looking at me. 3 years old, sticky hands, tears streaming, and being told I was too much. That day, I realized something that no one had told me. Our unhealed wounds will raise our children if we don't heal them. And from that moment on, I started asking myself, am I parenting from a wound or from wisdom? Because our kids don't just inherit our eye color, they inherit our nervous system. They inherit our fears. And if we don't interrupt that, history doesn't just repeat itself, it amplifies. But here's the hope. Just because pain was passed to you doesn't mean it has to pass through you. Awareness is the first act of resistance. So how do you know if you're parenting from a wound? Well, see if any of these sound familiar. You explode when your child cries or challenges you. You swing from being too strict to too lenient because you're terrified of being like your parents. You feel guilty for setting boundaries, so you avoid them until you snap. If that's you, you're not broken. You're not a bad parent. You're human, but you're parenting from your nervous system, not your values. When I was raising my oldest, I didn't understand this. I thought control would keep her safe. I thought being tough would prepare her for a hard world and help her put distance between what she had known from her father. But what I didn't realize was my toughness was fear wearing armor. Fear-based parenting doesn't make strong kids. It makes anxious kids. And it keeps us stuck in the very cycle we swore we'd break. And that leads us to perhaps the earliest origins of our wounds: attachment. Attachment theory isn't some dusty academic idea. It's a mirror. And if we're brave enough to look into it, we might see the patterns we've been replaying our whole lives. John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth gave us the language for something we already feel. How safe we felt as children shapes how we love, how we trust, and how we parent. There are 4 main styles of attachment. With secure attachment, you trust connection. You trust yourself. You know that love doesn't mean abandoning yourself. But with anxious attachment, you fear disconnection like it's death. You chase closeness and you lose yourself trying to preserve it. And if you're avoidant, you armor up. Independence is your religion, and vulnerability feels like a trap. Now, some of us, including myself, experience disorganized attachment, where we crave intimacy and fear it at the same time. Love feels unsafe, and not loving feels even worse. But guess what? These styles don't just disappear once we have kids. They show up in our tone of voice, in our body language, and in the stories we tell ourselves when our kids act out. If you were never soothed, it's hard to soothe. If your own emotions were ignored or punished, you might freeze when your child sobs in front of you. But here's the real power in this. Attachment wounds can heal. Parenting becomes more than just responsibility. It becomes an invitation and a chance to rewrite the story. It's a revelation that can hit you right in the gut. Our kids' milestones often force us to face the wounds we've buried. And when this happens, we don't always react in ways we'd want to. Our brains, those powerful, survival-driven machines, are shaped by deeply embedded neural circuits and emotional parts that were formed by our past experiences. But before we get too deep into talking brain science, let's start with a concrete example. Dr. Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain is probably one of the best tools I've ever used to explain this. So imagine tucking your thumb into your palm and folding your fingers over. That's your brain. Your fingers are the equivalent in this example to your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical, reasonable part. And your thumb, that's your amygdala, the alarm bell. So when we're regulated, the fingers stay over the thumb, and we can think clearly, we can stay calm. But under stress, those fingers pop up and logic flies out the window. This alarm takes over. We literally flip our lids. And for those of us with trauma, that lid flies up fast, too fast, because we've lived with an overactive alarm system. So when our child refuses to brush their teeth, it's not about hygiene. Our brain registers disrespect, rebellion, chaos, and suddenly we're acting like it's a war zone. This is the power of understanding your brain, because once you see what's happening, you can stop blaming yourself and start rewiring. You don't need perfection. You need awareness and regulation. So let's go a little deeper into how our brains can direct our responses to stressful parenting situations. And we're going to talk about the neuroscience behind how trauma alters the brain's response system. Again, our brains are wired for survival. When we go through trauma, our nervous systems get supercharged, so we become hypervigilant. They're constantly on the lookout for danger. And this is where neuroception comes in. Hey, real quick, I've got something for you. If trust in your relationships has ever felt impossible, I know what it's like to want connection but feel scared to let anyone in. And that's why I created the Trust Blueprint. It's a trauma-informed guide to help you rebuild trust, set boundaries, and show up fully in your relationships. And this isn't just for you. Supportive partners will learn how to meet you where you are with patience, compassion, and understanding. Real healing doesn't happen alone. It happens together. The Trust Blueprint. Rebuild trust, reconnect with love, and start feeling safe again. Visit traumatopurpose.com and click on the Self-Paced Learning tab to learn more and get your download today.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. When you visit the doctor, you probably hand over your insurance, your ID, and contact details. It's just one of the many places that has your personal info. And if any of them accidentally expose it, you could be at risk for identity theft. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second. If you become a victim, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply. This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Neuroception, a term coined by Dr. Stephen Porges, is how our nervous system unconsciously scans our environment, assessing whether we're safe or under threat. It happens before we even realize it. And for those of us with trauma, this internal scanner becomes oversensitive. Your child's behavior? It's not just behavior. It's often interpreted by our brains as a threat, not because we're broken, but because we've learned to expect the worst. For example, when your toddler screams, "No," it's not just defiance. It's a signal to your brain that control is slipping away, that your voice isn't being heard. And when your 7-year-old pushes limits, it taps into that old fear you carry from childhood that you're too much or difficult, and that setting boundaries will lead to rejection. And in these moments, your brain can flip its lid, as we said. The prefrontal cortex, where we can think clearly, that just goes offline. The amygdala, the emotional alarm center, takes over. And suddenly you're in fight or flight mode, reacting to your child like you're facing a threat, instead of it being a 7-year-old testing boundaries. So now let's apply this to the internal family system reasoning to talk about the parts of us that get triggered. Because from an internal family system perspective, this is where things get really interesting. When we flip our lids, it's because parts of us, those parts developed in childhood, are activated. The internal family system says our psyche is made up of different parts, each with its own feelings, memories, and roles. And these parts are formed by unmet needs or unresolved trauma. So when a child triggers us, it's often not about their behavior. It's about the part of us that's being activated by their actions. It's the part that was silenced, rejected, or made to feel unworthy. So take a moment and think about the part of you that reacts when your child challenges you. That part might be the hurt inner child, the one that wasn't allowed to have their own voice, the one who learned that emotions were a threat. Let's talk through some more concrete examples of how this could play out in our parenting. Let's say that your toddler is screaming no. A toddler's defiant no might take you back to a time when your own voice was shut down, where your brain feels flooded with a protective part that was formed in response to those early experiences of being silenced. So what's your reaction? Maybe harshness, frustration, or even withdrawing. And let's talk about that 7-year-old again, pushing those limits. When a 7-year-old pushes limits, it can trigger the fear of being too much, that you too were punished for your own emotions or needs. And in these moments, your brain may register that behavior as dangerous and create a sense of overwhelm and like you're out of control. Let's talk about your teenager pulling away. Because when a teenager pulls away, it can feel like abandonment, but only because no one let you separate safely as a child. Your brain interprets their desire for independence as a threat to your connection. Your emotional reactions may feel like rejection, not healthy separation. But this isn't about blaming ourselves. This is about understanding the triggers and the parts inside of us that are activated. Neuroception and internal family systems help us to see we're not broken. Again, we're not bad parents. We're reacting based on our past. Our children aren't trying to trigger us. They're inviting us to see the parts of ourselves we've ignored, suppressed, or avoided. They're offering us a chance to heal. And even still, and here's a statement that may disappoint and even unnerve you. As we were hurt in relationships, we must heal in relationships. In the U.S., independence is idolized. We're told, be strong, don't need anyone, handle it all on your own. In other countries, it often sounds more like honor your family, obey authority, and never question tradition. Different cultures, same chains, silence and shame. Listen closely. Some of the most harmful beliefs we carry did not start with us. They were handed down like heirlooms, wrapped in fear and labeled as love. And let's name what's true. Fear kept us in line. Fear of being beaten, fear of being shamed, fear of being cast out if we dared to rebel. But hear me, sometimes rebellion is the healthiest thing you can do. And I'm not talking rebellion for ego, rebellion for healing, for your children, for your future. If you've ever felt resentment towards those who hurt you, or the weight of being told to fall in line, that's your soul saying no more. Expecting accountability from them is natural, but waiting for it keeps you stuck. The nobler act, demanding accountability of yourself. Changing your parenting style, your tone, the way you treat your own soul. That's not weakness, that's courage. And that's legacy work. Breaking cycles doesn't make you disloyal. It makes you brave. Here's a truth no parenting book tells you loud enough. You will mess up. You're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to lose your patience. You are going to snap when you actually wanted to soothe. And that's okay. Because here's the real deal. It's not the rupture that breaks our kids. It's the absence of repair. Donald Winnicott nailed it when he talked about the good enough parent. Not perfect, not flawless, not superhuman, just consistent, attuned, and most importantly, willing to repair when things go sideways. So what does that look like in real life? Well, you name the moment. You say things like, that wasn't okay. I raised my voice. And you take accountability. And you can say something like, you didn't deserve that. That was my reaction, not your fault. And then you circle back later with something like, hey, I want to check in about earlier. Are you okay? Do you want to talk? But here's the part that often gets overlooked. Reparent yourself. After you apologize, don't spiral into shame and don't let the I'm a bad parent voice take over. Give yourself the compassion you wish someone had given you when you were growing up. Every rupture you repair becomes a thread of trust. Every sincere apology, it's a bridge building connection, not tearing it down. This isn't about being soft or perfect. It's about being brave enough to stay present even when it hurts, even when it's messy. That is the true courage of parenting. Let's land here gently. If you are parenting while healing, I want you to hear me. You are doing sacred work. I'm talking about the kind of work that's messy, painful, and transformative. The kind of work that might not get recognition in the moment, but that ripples through generations. You are teaching your children a new language, one that's rooted in truth, softness, and accountability. You're showing them what it looks like to speak openly, to admit when you're wrong, and to hold each other with compassion instead of judgment. You are offering them a legacy of healing, even if you don't see the full picture yet. You're responding moment by moment in ways your nervous system was never taught to respond. You are breaking patterns of reactivity, of shutdowns, of fear-based responses. You are rewiring your brain with each difficult conversation, each deep breath, each time you pause and choose to respond from a place of awareness. And I need you to hear this part clearly. You are whispering to the generations before you. It ends with me. Because here's the thing. Our bodies carry the truth of what's been passed down. And as Alice Miller said in The Drama of the Gifted Child, the truth about our childhood is stored up in our body. But listen carefully. So is the truth about our healing. Your body holds the power to transform, to break the cycles, to rewrite the stories of hurt and dysfunction. Your body holds the power to transform, to break the cycles, to rewrite the stories of hurt and dysfunction. You are the cycle breaker. Not because you get it right every time. Let me be crystal clear. You won't. There will be times you'll mess up, times you'll lose your patience, say the wrong thing, react without thinking. It's all part of the human experience. But you are the cycle breaker because you come back to the table, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You get up, you take accountability, and you show up, even when you're tired, even when it feels like too much. You are the last generation if you choose to be. Every moment of growth, every small victory, every time you choose healing over harm, you are making that choice. So let's keep choosing together. Because we are the last generation to carry these burdens forward, but we are also the first generation to truly heal. And that, my friend, is the most powerful thing we can offer the world. Coming up next on The Last Generation, we are diving even deeper into the realities of parenting. And this is going to be real talk with my husband and me. We'll unpack the beautiful mess of step parenting, navigating step sibling dynamics, and the challenges of dealing with the biological and step parenting dynamics. Because when you add those layers to everything that we talked about today, the triggers, the wounds, the repair, it gets even more complex, even more raw, more real. And if you thought parenting was hard before, wait till you hear what it's like when family looks a little different. Get ready for honest conversations, lived experience, and actionable insights that no one else is talking about. Don't miss it. You've been listening to The Last Generation, Transforming Trauma into Purpose. For more resources, visit traumatopurpose.com. If this episode resonated with you, consider leaving a review and joining the community online. Subscribe, and let's transform together.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.